LaGenna, bright and beautiful. She seemed to have everything going for her in life. North Carolina's Junior Miss of 1979 had become a successful model and actress. But something happened that would change her life forever. Story of Gandhi.
Opportunity, and I think that that's what was true in my life, is that I had prepared myself for any number of careers, whether that be public relations or advertising, by just getting an education. And when a mini-series was filmed in this area, I had had an agent for many years just do modeling and TV commercial work. I was cast in this mini-series, and that was really my big break, because the director was a well-known director. He's the director of that mini-series long ago called Shogun, and he is the one who had encouraged me to move to Los Angeles to pursue a television and film career. I was going to move to New York to do musical theater, because I love to dance and sing, and I love audiences. I love the aliveness of it and the immediate response. But he really encouraged me to do television and film. He said, I think you'll have a bigger impact there, and so that's why I moved to Los Angeles.
Had you been to Los Angeles before?
No.
What do you think when you saw this big city?
I cried. I cried. I drove my car across country.
By yourself?
No, I had a friend to switch off driving, so that was good. And I packed as much as I could in my little 280Z as I could. This was 1984. And I'll never forget my mom and dad standing on the doorstep, and I saw my dad cry. And that was only the second time in my life I'd ever seen him cry. And they were crying because they knew about the evils of Hollywood. They weren't ever worried that I would succumb to them, because I didn't. I never succumbed to temptation in Hollywood, and there are many. But what they were worried about is the way I had always been, which was very trusting, and of all people, too trusting. And that they were strong enough and loose enough with their reins that they let me go. And I appreciate that. You know, if they had not let me go, I think I would have resented that.
Yes.
And so they let me go, but with love and with instruction and with the open arms of saying, you can always come home. You can come back in a month, in a week, in a year. You are always welcome to come back. And we talked on the phone several times a week, and I came home every couple of months. So I was always very close and stayed in touch, you know, with my family.
Little did you know that when they said that to you, you could always come home. What an impact that would have in years later.
Yeah.
What was your first job?
My first significant job was a guest starring role on The Fall Guy, and it was a big part, and I was very fortunate to get that. Now, it took me 3 months, and that's not a long time in Los Angeles. to me it seemed like a long time because I had set time limits. I said, if in 3 months I haven't gotten a part, I'm leaving. And right at that 3-month mark, I got my first guest starring role, which the whole plot revolves, the whole hour of that show revolves around that character. But up to that 3 months, I had already seen a lot that I didn't like. I'd seen a lot of women at auditions that were willing to compromise their values. And I'd seen a lot of women that called themselves actresses that had sugar daddies. And I didn't have respect for that. It made me angry inside because I thought, when women do this, it sets sort of a tone for all of us that are pursuing acting. And I just didn't like that, and I didn't respect it. And I guess really deep in my heart, I was judgmental of it. I mean, I see that now. I see now that I thought, well, I'm never going to be that way. Yeah. And I wasn't, but in my heart, I guess I felt judgmental because I couldn't see beyond what they were doing. I couldn't see that they were broken little girls that probably didn't get attention from their fathers, that were willing to compromise. And now, I have such a different feeling for women like that. My heart is broken for women that do that because I have a different tender heart now, and I understand. Right.
Things begin to move along pretty good, right?
I was very fortunate. In 3 years, I guest starred on about 25 different primetime television shows, co-starred in 5 films, did probably over 100, national and regional commercials and videos. It was you. Why?
Why? I did it for you, Lita, so you could really do that last scene.
Were you real happy at this time? I was there.
I was happy with my career. I was happy with my life, with the way I've lived my life. But I think that there had to have been a void, even though I felt like I knew God and I had a relationship with Him, because it wasn't completely deep and didn't permeate every aspect of my being. There was a void, and that void was filled with striving towards perfection in whatever I did. And that is a hopeless path, and it always ends up in disappointment, because no matter how well I did, there was always the next level, the next step. I mean, the joy would not only last a moment. It would only last a moment. I didn't even watch most of the things that came on TV, because once I'd gotten a part and done it, I was on to the next one. Most people would think you'd sit down and just get all excited and watch. But for me, half the time, I was out, working on getting my next part, because the joy was already gone.
So, your self-worth, you didn't think you were worth very much?
It's hard to believe, coming from such a loving, wonderful mother and father and family that I came from. But it really, I think from the time you're a baby, it has to be taught in church, and it has to be taught in the home, and it has to be taught in the schools, that you are loved unconditionally just because you're a child of the Lord. Now, I knew my parents loved me unconditionally, but I didn't know that there was anybody else that would. And I didn't know that God could and did. I went to church most every Sunday, but for whatever reason, I missed that. I missed that in the church that I grew up in. And that's not to put the church down. It was a wonderful church, but, only in the last 8 years have I learned what it truly means to have a personal relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
You have AIDS. How did you get this disease?
I contracted this virus through sexual transmission was a man that I've known for 6 years, a man that I trusted, a man who told me he loved me, wanted to marry me, pledged his love, asked me to marry him. We consummated our relationship on the day that he asked me to marry him, September 10th, 1986. And then he disappeared out of my life without an explanation.
When you say disappeared, you mean really left?
Literally. Now, we did live in different states, and we had plans to see each other over Thanksgiving, and I talked to him the day before, and he was on his way to see me in Los Angeles, and he never showed up. And I tried to call him, and I called his family. I mean, my immediate thought was that he missed his plane, or maybe even the plane had crashed. I was really concerned about his well-being. And for about a week, I was just frantic, trying to find him, not thinking anything about myself, just only concerned for him. And after about that amount of time, I realized that there was something going on. There's a problem here. It couldn't possibly be that he got cold feet, because he had pursued me for so long. I mean, he had proposed 2 other times, and I said no. And only in his 3rd proposal did I feel ready. And that theory didn't work, and I just couldn't imagine where he was or what the problem was. And I began to try to contact his friends, and they didn't know. And then I became increasingly worried. And it wasn't until I got a phone call from a stranger who had heard a rumor that this man was dying from AIDS. And I didn't believe it. I thought it was a vicious, cruel rumor started about my boyfriend.